Welcome back to the deep dive,
Yeah.
where we really get into a subject.
That's right.
Um, and today we're going to do a deep dive on Bob Camblin.
Oh yeah, he's a favorite of many artists.
Really?
Yeah, he's an enigma wrapped in I don't know,
An enigma.
an enigma. Yeah, his work is scarce,
Oh, really?
highly sought after,
Well,
and so yeah, very very interesting artist.
wow. Okay. So we're going to be taking a look at a number of different sources here. Biography of Bob Camblin, Zen and the Art of Enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
some YouTube videos. There's a really interesting YouTube video by Gail Bracegirdle on Venice, which is one of Bob Camblin's watercolors. And also there's a book review of a collection of his drawings called The Art of Everything.
Yeah.
So we're going to be taking a look at these sources, and we're going to do a deep dive on Bob Camblin
Right.
and see if we can come to some understanding of him and his art.
Right. Try to put our finger on what makes his work so unique.
So he was born in Oklahoma in 1928. His parents were both artists.
Right. And apparently he did the art direction on his high school yearbook.
He was the art director, yeah.
Yeah.
So he lived in Poca City, and during the 30s and 40s, that was when the Marland Estate was sort of in its heyday.
That's right. Yeah, the E.W. Marland Estate, which is a huge mansion with acreage and everything else.
Right.
Sort of an icon in Oklahoma.
Right.
I mean, there was oil money back then,
Sure.
and yeah.
So it was the Depression, and yet there was also this great wealth.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting sort of dichotomy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Also, he was very influenced by The Wizard of Oz.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of the imagery that he used later on could be seen as being related to that.
Right, like the Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow, yeah.
So yeah.
The whole surreal aspect
Yeah.
of the Wizard of
Life,
Oz,
yeah.
which definitely informs his work.
He had a friendship that lasted over 60 years with Forrest Harrisberger.
That's right.
And they met when they were quite young. And then they both served in the military.
Right. And then after that, they both went to the Kansas City Art Institute
They did.
on the GI Bill.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was at the Kansas City Art Institute that Camblin really got into reading. He read Emerson. He was very influenced by the I Ching.
Right.
And also haiku and haiga.
That's right, yeah. A lot of Eastern influences there,
Right.
which really show up in his work.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole idea of, being able to sum up a lot in a small space.
Right.
Very, very much a part of his philosophy.
Right, yeah.
I mean, haiku and haiga are both known for that.
Yeah.
Getting right to the heart of the matter.
Right, yeah.
With a minimum of fuss.
Right. And then he got a Fulbright scholarship and he went to Europe.
He did, yeah. He went to Venice.
Right. And he loved Venice.
He did. He called Venice his Emerald City.
Yeah.
So, he was very taken with Venice.
Right.
He also went to the Uffizi Gallery in Florence
Mm-hmm.
and the Capuchin Catacombs in Palermo.
Wow.
So, a wide range of influences there.
Right.
And he said the Capuchin Catacombs had a profound influence on him. That the mummies, as he called them, stuck with him.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did some interpretations of Botticelli's The Birth of Venus and Primavera.
Right.
And The Birth of Venus was actually a dedication to KPFT Radio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is a listener-supported radio station in Houston.
Right.
And he also did Primavera, but Flora is Masked, and there are all sorts of hidden symbols in it.
I see.
There are hearts, and there are electrons.
Wow.
And even a smile that rivals the Mona Lisa.
Huh. How about that?
So,
So he's not just copying these things.
No.
He's using them as a springboard for his own ideas.
right.
And his own imagery.
Right.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, so before he went into teaching, he actually started out as a map maker.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, that's a very detail-oriented kind of work.
Yeah.
And then he became a teacher, and he taught at a number of different universities.
Right.
But in 1976, he decided to leave academia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He left, and he was in his late 40s when he did that.
Right.
And he wanted to devote himself full-time to art.
Well, that takes guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he felt that art transcended criticism.
Right. He believed that it spoke directly to the soul of the viewer
Yeah.
without any need for interpretation.
Right.
He wanted people to experience his art directly,
Yeah.
without having it mediated by critics or academics.
Right.
He felt that the experience of art was a personal one, and that it shouldn't be filtered through other people's opinions.
Right.
Um, he he was very interested in that direct connection between the artist and the viewer.
Yeah.
And he thought that was the most important thing.
Right. So he went from abstract expressionism to muchas volantes
Yeah.
in the 1980s,
Right.
which is using dots and dashes to create optical illusions.
Yeah.
So he was always experimenting.
Right. Always trying new things,
Yeah.
always pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
which is one of the things that makes him so interesting.
Right.
He wasn't content to just stay in one place.
Right.
He was always looking for new ways to express himself.
Right. And he did social protest art before he went into human symbols.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And he wanted to make drawings monumental enough to compete with paintings. And he incorporated corrections in his drawings.
Huh. So that people could see, how the work evolved.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was influenced by Hugo van der Goes and Goya in his 1960s work.
Yeah.
He used applied paper for subtle gradations.
Okay.
And then in the 1970s, he aimed to turn the subjective, the symbolic, and the decorative functions of art into the mystical.
I see.
And recurring images in his 1970s work are puppets, scarecrows, skulls, and glass reliquaries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of memento mori kind of imagery there.
Yeah.
Reminders of mortality.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a common theme in art.
Right.
But he seems to be using it in a very particular way.
Right.
Not just as a straightforward reminder of death.
Right.
But as a way of exploring the mysteries of life and death.
Right. And he mentioned Freud, De Chirico, Grunewald, Kazantzakis, and Grass.
Wow. That's quite a range of influences.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said that art was not heavy, but the reaction to art could be.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess he's saying that art itself is neutral, but the way that people react to it can be very powerful.
Right.
And then in his later work, he became increasingly ambiguous and used a lot of hidden meanings.
Yeah. He wanted to keep people guessing.
Right.
He didn't want to give everything away.
Right.
He wanted people to have to work a little bit.
Right.
To figure out what his work was about.
Right. And he compared his project to remaking Goya in 20th century terms, similar to what Cézanne and Poussin did.
Wow, that's a pretty ambitious project.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said that knowing too much spoiled the game of art.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's saying that there's a certain amount of mystery that's necessary in art.
Right.
And that if you know too much about it, it loses its power.
Right.
So one of the recurring themes in his work is impermanence and the cycle of life.
Right.
And he has a quote, "Fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years, perhaps."
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Venice, you see this in the canal, the weathered stone, the dried flowers and decaying bottles, the jack-o'-lantern, the artist's self-portrait and hidden faces.
Right.
And Gail Bracegirdle in her YouTube video connects this to Zen philosophy on impermanence, the preciousness of fleeting moments, and hexagram 36, Ming Yi.
Right.
And then you also see this in the way he depicts the drying of organic and inorganic matter.
Right.
And he used white crystals and salt, wing and bones, dried feathers, flesh, rocks, sand,
Yeah.
dead bird lake, sand land.
Yeah. So he's really interested in the process of decay.
Yeah.
The way that things break down over time.
Right.
And he's using that to explore the cycle of life and death.
Right. Another recurring theme is paradox and ambiguity.
Right.
And he wanted to achieve a perfectly average view to enjoy miracles of science and magic and the gray between.
Right.
And he emphasized balancing and being for and against.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And he said, step off the train of thought.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the book review of The Art of Everything, they mention traps that do not trap in disappearing objects.
Huh.
Yeah. And they talk about the nature of belief versus knowing.
Right.
And he used text in his drawings both informatively and as a disguise or clue.
Right.
And There are data problems with codes and dead ends in his drawings.
Wow.
Yeah. So, he's really playing with the viewer.
Yeah. He's not making it easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So another theme is the artist's role and identity.
Right.
And he said that the artist today is the only free agent.
Yeah.
And he was collaborative in nature, and he signed works as anonymous.
Huh.
Yeah. And there's that self-portrait in Venice, the creator embedded in the landscape.
Right.
And he explored personal and collective identity.
Right.
And Zen and Eastern philosophy is very important in his work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He referred to zazen, the aimless mind focuses itself.
Right.
He talked about the importance of not to look, but to see.
Yeah.
And the book review mentions everyday enlightenment.
Right.
And there's this Alan Watts quote that the book review uses.
Okay.
That the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance.
Yeah.
And Camblin was very interested in the idea of balance between intuition and logic.
Right.
And then finally, there's the nature of art and perception.
Right.
And he said that art evolves for life's sake, survival's sake.
Yeah.
And he explored both visual and non-visual art.
Ah.
Yeah. And the book review says that his work is a series of questions.
Right.
And he emphasized the viewer's active participation in creating meaning.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So he moved to Oregon and then to Louisiana with his wife, Nancy.
Right.
And he withdrew from the Houston art scene. And Earl Staley tells a story about how they had this shared studio, B&E Productions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, B&E.
Wow.
And they had collaborative shows.
Right.
And Staley says that Camblin was a great storyteller.
Oh.
But that he became more reclusive in his later years.
Right.
He had this persona, Mr. Peanut.
Really?
Yeah, Mr. Peanut.
Yeah.
And he would sign his works anonymously as Mr. Peanut. How about that?
Yeah. So he's got a sense of humor.
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
And his supporters had a difficult time organizing a retrospective.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so he's still a mysterious figure.
Yeah.
But he's a very important figure in contemporary art.
Right.
And he's a mystical trickster figure who's ripe for rediscovery.
Absolutely.
And there are quotes in the biography from fellow artists and collectors who talk about his impact and his enigma and the deeply personal experience of engaging with his work.
Right.
So there you have it, Bob Camblin.
That was a great overview.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So Bob Camblin, a very enigmatic figure.
Right.
A very important figure in contemporary art.
Absolutely.
And someone whose work is definitely worth seeking out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's one of those artists who really makes you think.
Right.
He doesn't give you any easy answers.
Right.
But he asks a lot of interesting questions.
Right.
And his work is just full of, hidden meanings and paradoxes and ambiguities.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that makes it so compelling. You can look at it again and again and always see something new.
Right. So hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe inspired you to go out and check out Bob Camblin's work for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And until next time, happy deep diving.